Hello. Okay, so this is the next part of the Sibyls into basically a rewriting of history all the way up into we are not from Africa, unless all of Africa is the whole entire planet. And then we are indigenous, is the best way to describe it. And I say we because of my link to this land and my own ancestry, just through self-knowledge and from what I've learned doing my own research. So in the last video, I talked a lot about the Sibyls and who they are, the prophetesses. Now, one of the theories that I've had is when we look at the world today, we see that we have forgotten the mother. And in this, my theory is that man or human has disrupted the balance because of lack of respect and love for the mother, which is the true goddess and also the planet. And if you don't have any love or respect for the mother, then you are able to create this disbalance and perpetuate, and even everyone kind of agrees with it. So one of the things I just recently came across is a great video on YouTube about Tituba, a South American indigenous slave. Actually, she was a servant that has been depicted as African. Now, the reason why I bring up this story is because she was the first person accused of witchcraft during the Salem witch trials. And so what we see through our history, and I'm bringing this up because it is very important to understand that the first major lie and rewriting and major illusion was the ending and usurping and plagiarizing of the Sibyls' work of the Great Mother. So the Sibyls are responsible. The woman, the mother, is responsible for all the great arts and education that we now get to enjoy. They created language. They studied the stars, astrology. They created math. They created all the languages. They helped with nursing, birthing, herbs, magic, working with the elements, talking with the planet. This was all of them. And so what we know for sure is there are stories like of Sacagawea, who I believe her name is actually pronounced Sacagawea, I'm not sure, was kidnapped at about 14 years old. And then the story goes that her husband and her son joined Lewis and Clark for the Lewis and Clark expedition. Well, I think what they needed to say is her kidnapper and their child, because mostly women were taken and kidnapped to be servants or to be sold as slaves. The men were murdered, and then the women and children were stolen. And also in the story of Tituba, am I saying her name right? Tituba. Good goodness. Tituba. Tituba. Tituba actually, when the language is broken down, is Arawak, and that is from South America, the Venezuela, Guyana area, Guinea or Guyana, which means land of black people, or land of the black. Okay, so in her story, she was stolen as a child. She watched her mother and sisters be accosted and harmed, and she said she would have been if she wasn't a child. And so from South America, she was then moved to Barbados and then moved to Massachusetts, where she then became a slave after her witch trials of a Thompson, which is very interesting. So, and also became a Negro slave when originally she was always in their court documents where she is an American Indian servant, and she looks like she is from what we have been taught is from Africa. Very dark skinned, Afro looking people. We call it an Afro. It's actually called a Chippewa, right? I'm learning. So, with the witch trials, so if you take a group of very magical people who is predominantly matriarchal, and you begin by stealing the women and taking the land, and you take the women who are you eliminate the men so you don't have any protection, and then you steal the women, and usually either in a very terrifying way or they're very young. And so you take a very young child and you move them to another part of the world and you tell them that they're from Africa. They still remember their land and home, but who are they to say where they're from when we have those telling us where we're from? Also, we have them telling us where this information came from. So the women were stolen because they were so magical and they were the heads of the tribes. Everything had to go through the woman.